Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown review. Yes, just a Smackdown review, no AEW Rampage review, since Rampage is going to start at 11:30 tonight. And, by the time I do this video reviewing Smackdown and AEW Rampage, by the time I edit the video and get it up, it'll possibly be uploaded around 2:30, 3 a.m. So I'm like, might as well just review SmackDown. Rampage, nothing newsworthy that's going to be on the show tonight to talk about. But SmackDown was from the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the show tonight was just very meh, in my opinion. Just wasn't a good show. But tonight, on SmackDown, we had Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Los Lotharios, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo. We had Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders versus Corbin, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky. That sounds entertaining. And we had Ridge Holland versus Kofi Kingston. And we also had Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. Of course, we had the Bloodline start off the show. But overall, SmackDown, just very meh show tonight. But before I start the review, just want to touch on this little bit of news here that was released tonight. So, I'm on Ringside News, and it is confirmed Cody Rhodes has signed with WWE. And PW Insider ended up breaking this news. They have confirmed that the American Nightmare signed a new deal with WWE, and that the deal was inked within the last 2 weeks. And before this news came out, it was reported last week that the creative team was not told about the plans for Cody Rhodes, and that the deal was being kept very quiet, and that it was a top secret situation. So, it says right here, Cody Rhodes has signed with WWE, which multiple sources in WWE have confirmed, and Cody ended up inking that deal about 10 to 14 days ago. And this is a big deal for WWE. It's a huge loss for AEW. But I'm okay with Cody Rhodes going to WWE. As long as they don't make him go back to being Stardust. He just needs to be Cody Rhodes himself. But Seth Rollins, he's without an opponent for WrestleMania. And this past Monday on Raw, there were teases of Cody Rhodes. And there was rumors that Cody Rhodes was going to show up on this past Monday Night Raw in Jacksonville, but that didn't happen. So WWE ended up playing and swerving everybody, thinking that Cody was going to be there just for them, just for the fans to watch Raw and get ready to see Cody Rhodes, which that didn't even happen. But, Seth Rollins' opponent at WrestleMania could be Cody Rhodes. I think WWE is going to bring in Cody Rhodes for WrestleMania, and that's going to be the WrestleMania match for Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. If that doesn't happen, that's my prediction, but I know that possibly might happen. But if it doesn't, WWE is going to probably save Cody for Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. But we'll have to wait and see. All I know is my prediction is that Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes is going to take place at WrestleMania. He's going to be Seth Rollins' opponent. That's what I am leading to. And if WWE decides to do that. But like I said, I'm okay with Cody Rhodes going to WWE. WWE needs Cody Rhodes more than Cody Rhodes needs them. So there you go. That was the little piece of news there. Cody Rhodes has signed with WWE. But let's jump right into the review. SmackDown opened up tonight, of course, as always, with the Bloodline, Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Paul Heyman. They end up stopping on stage. Reigns ended up taking the Universal Championship from Paul Heyman, raised it in the air. The Usos ended up doing the same thing with the tag team titles, had Pyro going off behind them. So the Bloodline was in the ring. Reigns was looking out at the crowd. The crowd there in Charlotte ended up giving Reigns a mixed reaction. Some people cheered for Reigns, some people booed. And there were fans also chanting for Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman ended up handing the mic to Reigns. Reigns ended up calling on Charlotte to acknowledge him. Reigns ended up saying that he gets to see Brock Lesnar tonight for the first time since he beat him down at the house show at Madison Square Garden and made him bleed all over New York City. Reigns ended up threatening to make Brock Lesnar bleed all over Charlotte tonight. Paul Heyman then ended up apologizing for interrupting Reigns, and Paul Heyman ended up revealing that Brock Lesnar's plane ran into bad weather in Saskatchewan, and that the flight was grounded. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that Brock Lesnar will not be here tonight. So the crowd ended up booing. Paul Heyman ended up going on praising Reigns as Reigns ended up taking the mic back. So fans were chanting for "We want Lesnar." So Roman Reigns ended up saying that he understands and that he fulfills his obligations and that he wants Brock Lesnar here as well because he was about to smash him. Reigns ended up saying, let's not blame the weather and the private jets. That's just a business decision. And Brock Lesnar is just scared, as he should be. Reigns ended up pointing to his shirt, and he ended up saying that he's in God mode, and there's not a man who can touch him. So Paul Heyman looked like he was trying to say something. Reigns ended up telling Paul Heyman, enough. Don't interrupt me. Reigns ended up saying that the fans paid to see him and want to hear what he has to say. So Paul Heyman ended up showing Reigns his phone, and it showed that Brock Lesnar has landed in Charlotte and that he's on his way to the arena. So Paul Heyman was throwing a fit. He was panicking. He was like, he's here! He's here! Which was hilarious. So Paul Heyman was asking what he's going to do, what Reigns is going to do. Reigns ended up saying that he knows what he is going to do. So Reigns ended up handing the mic over to Paul Heyman, and he left the ring quickly with the Usos while Paul Heyman was still panicking. So, and then we had the camera end up cutting backstage, and the Bloodline end up walking to their SUV. So Paul Heyman was with them. They quickly got in the SUV. Roman Reigns was shown sitting in the back seat. And then we hear this horn honking. And the horn was coming from a forklift in the distance. So Paul Heyman was screaming as we see Brock Lesnar driving the forklift. And he drove the forks through the windows of the Bloodline's SUV. And what was so stupid here is after that happened, after Lesnar ended up driving the forks of the forklift through the windows of the SUV, it went to commercial. And when that happened, I'm like, what the fuck? Why did it go to commercial there? Are we going to see what happens? So that was stupid right there. So then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we saw how Brock Lesnar continued to honk the horn of the forklift. He ended up trapping the Bloodline in the SUV with the forks. So Lesnar was enjoying himself. He ended up tipping over the SUV. So the SUV flipped over. The Usos and Reigns ended up escaping from the SUV. And they got into a pickup truck. They end up driving away. Brock Lesnar hopped off the forklift and he ran over to the truck. Lesnar ended up opening the passenger door to try to grab the Usos. Reigns sped away, and right as Reigns sped away, Brock Lesnar ripped the door off the truck instead of the door, running him over. So Brock Lesnar was now furious. He was yelling out at Reigns. He was yelling out as Reigns drove away. And he picked up his cowboy hat. He smiled. He picked up the door of the truck. And he marched out to the ring. So, what you're trying to tell me here is you couldn't show all this as it was happening. You had to wait until we came back from commercial to see all this happen. This should have just been played out. They shouldn't have gone to commercial after Brock Lesnar drove the forks of the forklift through the SUV. So Brock Lesnar ended up coming out to the stage. He was carrying still the door of the truck. Lesnar ended up dropping the door, and he picked it back up. He marched to the ring. He brought the door into the ring. Lesnar stomped on the door a few times. Lesnar got on the mic. He ended up asking the crowd to excuse him because he's a little riled up. He ended up saying that Roman Reigns has done unleashed a bipolar beast, son. So Lesnar then went on to say that Reigns can run and hide. But in 2 weeks at WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar is going to do more than blow the doors off him. So Lesnar ended up saying that he's coming for blood. And Reigns better be prepared. Lesnar ended up saying that he will see Reigns in 2 weeks. And he dropped the mic. He put his cowboy hat back on. He marched out of the ring. And that was basically that. But I liked this, with the Bloodline and just Brock Lesnar driving that forklift and the forks going through the windows of the SUV. That was pretty cool, but didn't like how it cut to commercial and then we had to see the whole thing of what happened during the break. So they could have just played that whole thing out, then go to commercial. But this is one match at WrestleMania that I am looking forward to with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns to see how WWE unifies both the WWE and Universal Championships. See how that plays out. Probably they'll fuck it up. Since we all know WWE, they like to fuck up some shit, as always. But that's one match that I'm looking forward to at WrestleMania. The other thing, Edge versus AJ Styles. And maybe seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin on the KO show. Everything else on that WrestleMania card, I don't care about. I don't. But I enjoyed this segment here to start off SmackDown. And then we had the first match of the night. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs versus Los Lotharios, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo. And Rick Boogs ended up coming out on the stage with his guitar. He does his introduction with the "Hey, I'm Rick Boogs," and the crowd goes like that. So he did his introduction for him, Nakamura. Of course, Pat McAfee, as always, going crazy at the commentary table. And Boogs and Nakamura ended up coming into the ring. And then SmackDown went to commercial. Then as SmackDown came back from commercial, Los Lotharios, Angel, and Humberto ended up coming out. Of course, we had the Lotharios kiss cam. They end up kissing the lady at ringside, of course. Match started. Nakamura started off with Humberto, and Nakamura ended up taking Humberto down, dropping a big knee. Nakamura kept Humberto down with a boot in the corner. Nakamura then ended up placing Humberto on the top turnbuckle and delivered a high knee. Nakamura ended up going for the cover. Humberto kicked out at 2, which then Nakamura went into a headlock to Humberto. Humberto turned it around, tagged in Angel. Nakamura delivered a knee to Humberto, and then he turned around to Angel, rushing at him with a strike. So Humberto and Angel started double teaming on Nakamura. Angel then ripped off his pants, throws them in Boogs' face. Angel started working over Nakamura in the corner. Humberto ended up tagging back in, and once again, Humberto and Angel started double teaming on Nakamura. So Humberto and Angel, both of them delivered a double basement drop kick to the back of Nakamura's neck, and Humberto ended up going for the cover. Nakamura kicked out at 2. So Nakamura ended up fighting up. He delivered some kicks to Humberto. Humberto then ended up catching a kick, ducked a roundhouse, and ended up dropping an elbow to Nakamura's back. So we had Angel end up tagging back in, started grounding on Nakamura. Angel was showing off, which got boos from the crowd. He delivered a punk kick to Nakamura. Boogs ended up getting knocked off of the apron by a cheap shot by Angel and Humberto, so it was a double team. Humberto ended up going on. He leveled Nakamura with a strike, and he ended up going for the cover. Nakamura kicked out at 2. So Nakamura ended up doing a hip toss to Humberto. He tagged in Boogs, and Boogs started unloading as Angel ended up coming in. Boogs ended up pressing Humberto high in the air over his head. Boogs then ended up tossing Humberto onto Angel. Boogs blocked an attack by Angel, picked him up, and he ended up delivering the abdominal stretch. Boogs then ended up dropping Angel with the Boogs Cruise Slam, and he went for the cover. And they go, Boogs and Nakamura ended up winning the match. Overall, match was okay, in my opinion. And then we had a recap of last week where Jinder Mahal, Shanky, Moss, and Corbin end up attacking McIntyre, which McIntyre fought off all them. So we had that. And then we had Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders versus Corbin, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky. This match, who cared? Did you all care for this match? I didn't. And it's really sad. We got to see McIntyre versus Corbin at WrestleMania. That does not scream a WrestleMania-worthy match. That's more of a match for a random episode of Smackdown. I can't believe we got to see this at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre versus Corbin. So the Viking Raiders ended up coming out first, and then out came Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre, of course, came out along with his sword Angela. Flames end up shooting up as they end up heading to the ring. So as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Megan Moran was backstage with Corbin, Moss, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky. Corbin ended up going on about how WrestleMania will be the greatest weekend of his life because he will dominate McIntyre. Corbin ended up asking Moss to crack a joke, and he did. Moss ended up cracking a shitty joke, and it didn't go over well with Corbin, Mahal, and Shanky, because Moss's joke was that an episode of Happy Talk, more like Shit Talk, he kept saying that an episode of that puts everyone to sleep is called Nappy Talk, and no one ended up laughing. Shit joke. Yeah, you know what? that sounds true because every time, a Happy Talk segment comes on, we all place our heads on our pillows and sleep to the segment. Because that's how awful and boring a Happy Talk segment is. Whenever we see Corbin and Moss in the ring. So then we had Corbin, Mahal, and Shanky come out along with Moss. And the match ended up starting. Eric ended up starting off with Shanky. Shanky ended up leveling Eric. Jinder tagged in. Eric ended up dropping him with a spine buster. He tagged in Ivar. Ivar and Eric ended up double teaming on Jinder in the corner. They ended up planning Jinder and Ivar ended up standing tall. Jinder turned it around, tagged in Corbin. Jinder and Corbin ended up double teaming on Ivar. Corbin delivered a shoulder, but Ivar was still up. Ivar knocked Corbin out of the ring with a shoulder. So at this point, Corbin was frustrated. He ended up coming back in, started loading some strikes onto Ivar. Corbin ended up hitting a spinebuster on Ivar. He ended up cheap shotting to McIntyre on the apron, which McIntyre was shown seething as the referee was holding him back. So as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Corbin was shown holding Ivar while Jinder ended up decking him. Jinder started grounding Ivar. Corbin ended up coming back in, stopping Eric from tagging in, which he ended up knocking him off the apron, ended up dropping Ivar in the corner. So later on we had Ivar end up ducking Corbin. He ended up tagging in McIntyre. Corbin quickly tagged out, wanted nothing to do with McIntyre. So Shanky ended up coming in. McIntyre unloaded on him. Jinder then also ended up coming in, but McIntyre ended up launching him overhead, sent him out to the floor. McIntyre laid out Shanky with a Michinoku driver. And then McIntyre started taunting Corbin while he was waiting for Shanky to get up. So McIntyre then ended up leveling Shanky with the Claymore. And he went for the cover. And there you go. McIntyre and the Viking Raiders ended up winning the match. Post-match, McIntyre ended up staring out at Corbin as he looked worried. McIntyre and the Viking Raiders ended up posing in the middle of the ring. McIntyre climbed the turnbuckles and he started looking down at Corbin. And pretty much that was that. But overall, this was a boring match. Do you all care to see Drew McIntyre versus Corbin at WrestleMania? Really? It's going to be the most boring match come WrestleMania between those two. I have not seen not one person say that, oh, McIntyre and Corbin, we're looking forward to that at WrestleMania. Not one person I've seen said, oh, they're excited for that match. And then we had Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was backstage. He kept saying that he should be standing there with his Intercontinental Championship. But he's not because of one person. And that one person is Johnny Knoxville. Now, if you remember last week, Johnny Knoxville on his social media, he ended up posting Sami Zayn's cell number, his phone number, and Sami Zayn was getting a lot of messages and a lot of calls from fans calling him, driving him insane, which I think that's funny. But Sami Zayn ended up going on about how Knoxville has gotten under his skin and ruined his life with juvenile tricks. Sami wanted to say that he will now show Johnny Knoxville what it truly means to step into his world. You know, saying that if Knoxville has the balls, let's make the match at WrestleMania anything goes match. So Sami Zayn throwing it out there to Johnny Knoxville that their match, anything goes. So, and then later on night we had Johnny Knoxville's response to that, which I'll get to. And then we had Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. And surprisingly, this was not a bad match, in my opinion. And we had Sasha Banks and Naomi end up coming out. As SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had a clip of the brawl from last week where Charlotte and Ronda Rousey were fighting, and we saw that. And then we went back to the ring, and Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega, the women's tag team champions, were sitting at the commentary table. So then out came Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and Michael Cole on commentary ended up saying that the team of Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan are now called Live for Brutality. I'm like, okay. So the match ended up starting. Liv Morgan started off with Sasha. Sasha ended up twisting Liv Morgan's arm up. She ended up tagging out to Naomi. Naomi came in and tied Liv Morgan's arm up, tagged in Sasha again, and they did a double team on Liv Morgan. So Banks and Morgan were trading more holds. They ended up on the ropes. Liv ended up countering a hip toss from Sasha. And then they ended up having some words in the middle of the ring. Sasha ended up taking control, launched Liv out of the corner. Liv ended up rolling Sasha for a 2 count. So Liv and Sasha ended up colliding with dropkick attempts. Liv did a kip up, and Sasha ended up gnawing at her. Sasha offered her hand for a shake. Liv Morgan then shaked Sasha's hand. Sasha ended up pulling Liv into a headlock. Naomi ended up tagging in, ended up taking Liv down with head scissors. So Naomi ended up hitting the split-legged moonsault onto Liv Morgan, which she ended up going for the cover, and Liv Morgan ended up kicking out too. Liv ended up taking Naomi down, and she ended up tagging in Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley delivered a basement dropkick to Naomi's face, and she ended up going for the cover. Naomi ended up kicking out too. Naomi ended up countering Rhea Ripley as they tangled in the middle of the ring. Naomi ended up ducking a clothesline and tagged out at Sasha Banks. Sasha ended up stunning Rhea Ripley, ended up finding her way. Sasha ended up going to work on Rhea Ripley as Rhea Ripley ended up blocking a suplex, and she ended up hitting one of her own, which she ended up holding Sasha in the air, and then she ended up dropping Sasha down to the mat. Rhea Ripley ended up going for the cover, and Sasha ended up kicking out too. Liv Morgan ended up taking back in, and Liv and Rhea Ripley ended up double teaming on Sasha in the corner. Towards the end of the match, Sasha and Naomi end up taking Rhea Ripley to the top for a double team, and they end up going for a double superplex. Liv Morgan ended up coming into the ring, and she ended up bringing Sasha, Naomi, and Rhea Ripley down, which was awesome. Zelina Vega and Carmella were shocked, and Natalya and Shayna Baszler end up coming into the ring. They end up attacking the woman, so the referee ended up calling for the bell, so the match ended in a no contest. So Natalya and Shayna Baszler were just destroying them. They ended up sending Rhea Ripley into the ring post, ended up dropping Liv. Zelina Vega and Carmella end up coming into the ring to join on the brawl. So it came down to Natalya and Shayna Baszler standing tall, while Carmella and Zelina end up standing tall. And Natalya then pointed up at the WrestleMania sign as her and Shayna Baszler started taunting Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega. And that was that. Overall, this was a good match, but it was a shit ending. So then we had a video message from Johnny Knoxville. Johnny Knoxville ended up accepting Sami Zayn's challenge at WrestleMania, where their match is an anything goes. That's their stipulation. So, but who cares? Who cares about Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville? So then we had Michael Cole end up saying that Pat McAfee is being summoned to Vince McMahon's office to apologize for, guess what happened last week. Pat McAfee ended up saying that he doesn't believe it at first. But Michael Cole ended up telling him Mr. McMahon wants to see him now. So Pat McAfee ended up getting up from the commentary table, and SmackDown went to commercial. Then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sonya Deville ended up stopping Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Deville ended up telling the both of them that they did a good job with attacking the other teams because some of those women deserved it. So Sonya Deville then ended up adding Shayna Baszler and Natalya to the women's tag team title match at WrestleMania, making the match a fatal four-way. Like, that sounds like a fun, entertaining match there. And then we had Michael Cole. Michael Cole, he was alone at the commentary table because Pat McAfee had to go to Vince's office. So the camera ended up cutting backstage to Pat McAfee walking out of Vince's office. Pat McAfee was shown angry as he marched through the backstage area, and he ended up heading to the ring. Pat McAfee ended up making his way to the ring, and he got on the mic, and he ended up recalling how when he was younger, he turned on some no-name network. And that network was the USA Network. He ended up saying that he saw something that changed his life by watching Monday Night Raw. He ended up saying pro wrestling changed his life immediately. He ended up saying that it was special, magical, and it shook him forever. He ended up saying on that Monday night, when all hell was breaking loose, he found a thing he thought he was put on earth to do. And when Pat McAfee was on the mic, the fans were giving him the what treatment. So we had Pat McAfee end up saying other professions got in the way. But finally, after retiring from the NFL, Pat McAfee ended up saying that he got a call from the greatest of all time. And that guy was Michael Cole. He ended up saying Michael Cole invited him to come work on SmackDown. Pat McAfee ended up giving Michael Cole a hell yeah. He ended up going on about how he dreamed about getting to WWE. Pat McAfee then got interrupted by Austin Theory. Austin Theory ended up coming out. So Pat McAfee ended up saying in the office, he just left, which was Vince McMahon's office, it was suggested that he apologize to Austin Theory or lose his dream job and his match against Austin Theory at WrestleMania. So Theory ended up mocking Pat McAfee in his face. Pat McAfee began to apologize to Austin Theory. So Pat McAfee ended up saying that he is sorry. He is sorry for beating Theory's ass last week. He's sorry for Austin Theory's parents that raised a douchebag. He ended up saying that he's sorry that he made Theory's filter face ass relevant. And sorry that Theory is a punk bitch. So Theory and McAfee then faced off in the middle of the ring. Theory was seething. He ended up stopping. And he raised his phone in the air, smiled, and he took a selfie with Pat McAfee. After that, Theory shoved Pat McAfee away, and Theory quickly retreated from the ring, and that was that. But yeah, we're going to be getting this match, Austin Theory versus Pat McAfee at WrestleMania. Who knows? Pat McAfee might once again be okay in the match. Look at what we saw Pat McAfee when he was facing Adam Cole, when Adam Cole was in NXT. And, you had the War Games match. You had just Adam Cole and Pat McAfee going at it. And For once I was like, oh, Pat McAfee's going to suck in the ring, but look when that match happened. Pat McAfee was surprising in there. Pat McAfee surprised me with what I saw with him and Adam Cole. But who knows? Pat McAfee could surprise once again against Austin Theory at WrestleMania. So overall, it was just a meh segment in my opinion. And then we had Kofi Kingston versus Ridge Holland, which Ridge Holland ended up coming out along with Sheamus and Pete Dunne, which they are now calling Pete Dunne Butch as of last week, which is fucking stupid. WWE changing superstars' names once again. And when Pete Dunne's name was changed to Butch last week, I'm like, already, he's dead on arrival on the main roster. Pete Dunne is going to be the next guy that's going to be on the list of superstar releases. His name's going to be on the next round of releases. Watch. With a name like that, you already know that they have no hope in him. He's dead on arrival on the main roster. So, if you remember last week, Big E ended up, with a broken neck due to Ridge Holland, and Big E was, taken out. Big E went on his social media and said that he has a broken neck. He can move his fingers. So he was thanking the fans. And Michael Cole on commentary ended up saying that Ridge Holland ended up apologizing to Big E earlier today. And he ended up saying that Ridge Holland said that he has immense respect for Big E. And there was a report last week where Ridge Holland ended up visiting Big E in the hospital. And he apologized to Big E. Because Ridge Holland, I guess, didn't know that was going to happen. That was unexpected. So, but, glad that Ridge Holland did that and went and apologized to Big E, visited him in the hospital. That was good on Ridge Holland there. So the match started off with Kofi started unloading on Ridge Holland. He sent Holland back to the corner with a drop kick. Holland ended up coming back on Kofi, sending him into the apron. Kofi ended up fighting back from the apron, ended up sending Holland out to the floor. Kofi then left off the apron with a right hand and sent Holland into the commentary table. Kofi ended up coming into the ring. Sheamus and Butch ended up checking on Holland as SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Ridge Holland ended up beating Kofi down in the middle of the ring. And Holland ended up delivering a tackle in the ring. And then Sheamus ended up clotheslining Kofi during the match. So we had Kofi end up drop kicking Holland. He ended up getting right back up. Kofi ducked a swing and nailed a clothesline to Holland. Kofi delivered the boom drop in the middle of the ring. So Kofi then ended up going for the Trouble in Paradise, but Ridge Holland ended up blocking it. Holland ended up sending Kofi into the corner. Kofi ended up going up to the top, and Pete Dunne, a.k.a. Butch, shoved him off while Sheamus ended up distracting the referee. So then the referee then ejected Sheamus and Pete Dunne, which got a pop from the crowd. So Kofi ended up taking advantage of the distraction. He ended up rolling Ridge Holland up. Holland ended up kicking out at 2. Kofi came back with a double stomp. Kofi then ended up throwing the shillelagh at Sheamus and Pete Dunne as they were walking to the back. Pete Dunne ended up rushing back to the ring, and he was ready to fight. Ridge Holland ended up taking advantage of that, and he ended up slamming Kofi with the Northern Grit. And there you go. Ridge Holland ended up winning the match. Overall, just a very meh match. And then we had Charlotte end up coming out. Charlotte Flair. Of course, you can't have a SmackDown in Charlotte, North Carolina without her, because it's in her hometown. So as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Charlotte was in the ring. Charlotte ended up saying that when you are her, you always have a plan. Charlotte ended up talking about how she taught Ronda Rousey a lesson last week. She ended up saying no one has caused Rousey more pain than she has. Charlotte ended up joking about putting a dent in the car with Ronda's head, which you saw last week was they were fighting in the parking area. So Charlotte ended up saying that she was seconds from making Ronda tap last week. But officials and the referees ended up saving her by pulling her off. By pulling Charlotte off of Ronda. Charlotte ended up saying that they saved Ronda, and that was just a taste of what's to come at WrestleMania. So Ronda Rousey was shown watching backstage for what Charlotte was saying. So the fans were chanting, "You tapped out" to Charlotte, which Charlotte then ended up lashing out at them. Charlotte ended up saying that Ronda has to overcome her to make a name here in the company. And that her own legacy is bigger than Ronda Rousey. Charlotte ended up mentioning how Ronda will go back and pop out another baby once she fails to win this time. So Charlotte ended up saying that Ronda doesn't have the spine, the passion, or anything else it takes to be champion. Charlotte ended up saying that she doesn't want to wait until WrestleMania to eviscerate Ronda again. So she ended up calling out Ronda to the ring so she can embarrass her in her hometown, the Queen City. So Ronda quickly walked through the backstage area. Kayla Braxton ended up trying to ask Ronda about this being a trap. Ronda ended up ignoring Kayla Braxton, and she just kept marching out to the ring. So out came Ronda Rousey. Charlotte dropped the mic. She ended up grabbing a kendo stick. So Charlotte ended up standing with the kendo stick in hand as Ronda ended up coming into the ring. Ronda ducked the kendo stick, started unloading on Charlotte, ended up kicking away at her. Ronda ended up blocking a move from Charlotte, ended up taking Charlotte down. Ronda was scrambling for the armbar, but Charlotte ended up escaping out of it. So Ronda and Charlotte ended up going out to the floor. Ronda ended up getting dropped on her head from the apron. So Ronda got back up. She ended up grabbing Charlotte, sent her face first into the ring post twice. Charlotte ended up trying to fight back, but Ronda ended up catching a kick and ended up applying the ankle lock. And Charlotte ended up grabbing another kendo stick that was placed from the timekeeper's area, and she ended up smacking Ronda with it to break up the ankle lock. So Charlotte ended up grabbing Ronda from behind with the kendo stick, ended up pulling back like she did on Ronda last week. So Ronda was refusing to tap as Charlotte ended up pulling back on her while they were both down on the floor. Charlotte ended up getting back up. She ended up putting Ronda through the commentary table with a powerbomb, and Ronda was just flat on her back after that. So Charlotte ended up putting one boot on her, and she ended up posing while looking up at the WrestleMania sign. And she was just keeping Ronda Rousey down with one boot on top of her as Ronda was selling the powerbomb. Looked like it had to hurt on Ronda because it looked like she was in pain. So that was how SmackDown went off the air. Overall, this was just very meh. Don't even care for this match at WrestleMania. But anyways, that was SmackDown tonight. Overall, just a very meh show. But anyways, that's it for my review of SmackDown. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.